Welcome to the Collaboration Conversation, a listener-supported video podcast where Christian artists, entrepreneurs, and friends share about their upcoming projects and how they are using the gifts and talents that God has given them. This podcast is made possible through generous listeners and friends like you, and we are so very grateful. If you would like to sponsor an episode, head on over to thecollaborationconversation.org and click Sponsor an Episode. Likewise, if you want to check out or support our nonprofit ministry project Brickworks, head over to projectbrickworks.org. Today, our very special guest is Stephanie Parker. Stephanie is just an incredible woman. I know her as an actress, but she is actually so much more than that. She is multi-dimensionally talented. She has started a children's clothing online store. She handles the merch for the TV show The Chosen, which we love. And as well, she has authored 2 children's books. Stephanie, I love you, and I'm so happy you're here. And I'm just so grateful for your time. Welcome to the Collaboration Conversation.
Thank you. And I love you ladies, and I'm so glad I'm here too. So thank you for having me.
I think we met in person for the first time not that long ago.
No, at CWVF at the film festival.
Yeah. And I was so in awe of you before because I've been, obviously, we've on Facebook and all of the things. But what was so impressive, this is such a silly story, and I did not tell you I was going to tell
I'm
this.
Scared. I don't know.
It's a good story. But so Micah, my boss, was there, and you had just made a movie with Micah. And normally it's my job to introduce him to people and talk him up and be like, this is Micah, he makes movies, and try to be that for him. And there was one time when it was like the first day, you just came and you're like, this is Micah Corona, and this is what he does, and this. And I was like, can she just walk with us everywhere? Because you just were such a hype woman. But I feel like you're that for everybody. I watched it happen multiple times throughout the whole thing. And it's just, we'll get to talents and gifts later, but I'm just naming that for you. That's a gift. You're such an encourager, and it's just one of the many reasons that I'm happy that you're here today. And
that's so sweet.
I'm grateful for your friendship.
And well, I have to say, it's one of those things where it's like, I don't do that unless I see beauty and kindness and love and talent in people, and it's exciting for me because it's like, look how God made this person, and you need to know about it. You know what I mean?
I love that.
And yeah. So, and he made you amazing, ridiculously. You have all the things under your name, all the different stuff. That there's so many things with you too.
You're so nice.
Both of you. It's awesome.
Well, I only had the chance to meet you that one time, but it is very nice to see you again.
Me too.
And so as we're getting a little familiar with you and your story, go ahead and share that with us and our listeners.
Okay.
Start with telling us about you.
Okay. So, I live in Texas, and I have 2 kids and an awesome husband. We've been married for nearly 13 years.
Congrats.
And which that has been probably just the biggest blessing in my whole entire life. There's nothing more refining in your walk with God and in who you are as a person than being married and having children. It puts on display all of your selfishness and pride and all of the problems that, God needs to refine in you.
Yes.
And so that has been the greatest journey that God has called me to is that type of refinement through the loves of my life,
Sweet.
Well said.
And I guess I would say, about me, I think my faith really defines me, and that's it. And those other things that you kind of mentioned are under all that are just kind of outflowings a little bit of that, and God calling me to do crazy, nutty things and being like, okay, I have no idea what I'm doing. And if you choose to bless it, you get the glory because I really don't know what I'm doing. And so, he's taken me on some adventures. That's for sure. There is nothing more adventurous than following Jesus. And I guess, where should I start? Where should I start with this story? I guess, where do you want to, why
don't you talk to us a little bit about maybe how you got started in acting, since that's kind of how I know you.
Yeah. So, before I got married, like, I guess now about 14, 15 years ago now, golly, that's crazy. I, I had moved to LA, got a manager and agent out there. It's just something I'd always been passionate about, primarily through theater acting. Like, I'd always loved musical theater, and just felt like I wanted to pursue it. And so went to LA, but my walk with the Lord was not what it is today. And so I found myself in LA auditioning for stuff that just was not in alignment with my convictions that I had been raised in. And you know what I mean? Even with my relationship not being what it is today, I knew it felt off. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, there was something there that I was like, and it's not, I mean, it's just the nature of the projects out there, right? Like, fair. From just the messages, the underlying messages, the vulgarity, the promiscuity, like, those are the themes in a lot of the projects. And I would say the majority of projects out there now. And then faith-based anything was like non-existent practically.
Yeah.
And so, and I really believe God rescued me from that in his grace and mercy, because as I was out there, I was also engaged to my husband. And so I went back to Texas, where he is from, and we got married. And then within 6 months, I was pregnant.
Wow.
And so it ended up being a situation where I was like, okay, it's time to put this on the shelf. Mm-hmm. And I also, because I was convicted at that point, like, I can't, I've got a daughter now, like, she's going to be seeing anything that I do too. Mm-hmm. And then I would say, like, early on in our marriage, even then I walked into marriage with like this movie trailer of what it was going to be like, like this picture of this is how marriage is going to be. And it's going to look a lot like a Disney movie, and he will complete me. Thank you very much. And
oh my gosh,
so
that's hilarious.
Rude awakening, right? Like, that's not light. That's not reality.
Thanks, Disney, for the really bad information.
Yeah. And no one told me that.
No,
somehow.
Right. Totally. Disney was like, hey, this is how it's going to be.
Yeah.
And we ate it.
He's going to look at you from across the room. There will be butterflies, and there will be like birdies singing, and then you will get married and live happily ever after.
That's exactly right.
So, and one of my favorite quotes is, everyone goes into marriage with a picture of what they think it's going to look like. And at some point in every marriage, you either start destroying the picture or you start destroying the person, and only one will survive. And I believe in my desire to hold on to that picture, started really destroying, and causing division and frustration in our marriage, because he wasn't living up to my Prince Charming picture that I had created.
Right.
And at one point he looked at me, he's like, I don't think I can do anything good or bad to like make you happy. And I got to this place and I thought it was all him. Like, he was the one, like, he needed to fix himself.
Right. Right.
You know
obviously.
what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, duh, I am not the problem here. And that's so I thought.
I so resonate with this right now.
And I remember kind of coming to this place where, like, okay, God, if this faith and your word is what it says it is, that I was raised to believe, because I was raised in a Christian home, and we did go to church, but I don't think I was walking with Jesus like I should have been, And so I was like, all right, God, if you are who you say you are, and your word is as powerful as you say it is, then I'm going to give you a year where I just like give you an hour a day for a year in your word. And I'm going to say, God, change me if that's what needs to be changed. But really, I would prefer if you change it. And
through me reading your word, please change him.
Yeah, exactly. And really, it was that process of realizing that the whole entirety of the Bible is not about me. It's not about my picture. It's about God's picture. It's about his glory. And he's the one on the throne, not me.
Yeah.
And I think it was that misplaced worship in our marriage that was causing some issues there, Yeah. And it was in God's word that I had to get off the throne and I'm going to have to do that for the rest of my life because I have like spiritual amnesia and like forget like that's what I'm supposed to do. But but it is truly the thing that changed my life. The word of God alone was the moment of change for the entire trajectory of my life after that. And then I feel like it was when my daughter was really young. She was swaddled. That's when, do you want me to start talking about the next phase of this?
Yes, please. Just keep going. I love it.
Okay. So then it was right around that time when really God started kind of getting a hold of me and started like opening my eyes to areas where I was I had things out of order, where I was kind of on the throne, if that makes sense. And where he was like, okay, kicking you off that part. And it's like, I think sometimes in our lives we have like, have you ever seen one of those apothecary drawers?
Yes.
Where there are all these little drawers.
Yes.
And I think sometimes we have like this Jesus drawer, and then we have all these other little drawers that we like are not putting Jesus into, but really what we should be doing is taking all the drawers and just throwing them in the Jesus drawer.
Yes.
And so sometimes God, he's like, okay, you're a hot mess, but I'm just going to deal with this drawer right now. Let's see where you got to work on some things here. Where do you need to die to yourself here a little bit, And it's whenever that happens and that full surrender and coming to the end of yourself happens, then it's just like the life and the joy and the peace follow that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I started seeing that in our marriage, but then right around that time, our daughter stopped sleeping. So she was swaddled like a little burrito, wrap them real tight. And, it was, right around the time when she started rolling. And so she couldn't be swaddled anymore. So she started, pushing up and if she doesn't have access to her hands, then she could roll over and suffocate. Right. And that's why people stop swaddling. And so we stopped swaddling her and she stopped sleeping completely. She just went from sleeping 12 hours to nothing.
No.
And I'm like, what's going on? And so I did some research and kind of discovered that there's something called a moral reflex that babies have, which startles them awake when they can't feel their edges like they could in the womb with a swaddle. And so they feel like they're falling, and that's why they jolt awake. And I was like, I took away her edges. So how do I give them back and do it in a way that she can still roll over? And so that's when I pulled out my little sewing machine from 8th grade and sewed up a little contraption.
Aww.
Actually, it was a zip up shirt that I got from Walmart that I cut the arms off, if I'm totally being honest here. Yeah. And sewed off the holes in the bottom and stuck her in it. And she slept 12 hours the first night. In fact, he woke up before she did, which if you are a parent, that is not normal.
That's amazing.
Right.
And I thought I'd killed my daughter with my contraption that I put her in. I was like, oh my gosh, is she alive? And sure enough, she was still sleeping and she woke up so happy. And I'm like, what is going on here? It works. Couldn't believe it worked. And then I made a few for my friends who had babies and they tried them. They were like, wow, it actually works. It actually let my baby sleep longer. And that was the time when I was going to go back to work for financial reasons. My husband worked in corporate America at the time and in sales. And my heart's prayer was just to stay home with her. Mm-hmm. But we needed 2 incomes at that point. And so I'm like, God, what do I do? The thought of, and to each his own, right? I love moms that work and take care of their families, but just in that season, I just felt led and called to stay with her.
Yeah.
And so I kind of pulled a Russian roulette on the Bible, which I don't recommend, but in that moment, I'm like, okay, God, I don't know what to do. Do I go back to this job that I don't love and use pretty much all my salary to go pay for someone else to raise my daughter right now? Or do I quit and take a chance on this crazy contraption that I don't even know how to sew very well? And I opened my Bible randomly and I landed on a verse in Ephesians that says, to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we could ask or imagine by the power that is at work within us, to him be the glory forever and ever. Amen. And so I'm like, I'm not able. I got nothing. I don't know how to run a business. I never wanted to run a business. I don't know how to sew. Like they were ugly, y'all. And strings like everywhere. But I had no business plan. I had like maybe $500 we could maybe invest in fabric and a website. And I was like, okay, but you say you're able. So
amen.
In that moment, I'm like, all right, Lord, if you say so, and if you choose to bless this, I'm giving you the glory. And like, I know exactly, like, it's just like it happened yesterday. It's the strangest. I know where I was sitting. I know there were teardrops on that verse. It was like in that moment, it was a moment, you guys. The Bible verse started our business.
That's
for real.
If anything's going to start a business, that's what it should be.
I know. So, and it just kind of gave me the courage to go, okay, let's do this thing. And so we built a really shoddy looking website and bought some fabric from Joann's and put it up, and people started coming. Like, and all of a sudden I was getting orders, and we didn't spend any money on advertising. I like posted a little on Facebook, on my personal Facebook page.
Yeah.
And I think maybe I got like 5 likes at the time. Like, I don't even, so, and yet people started ordering, and then they started working for their babies, and then people bought more and told their friends, and he did immeasurably more than all we could ask or imagine. And so truly I cannot, and I mean, our daughter's 11 now, and we're in pretty much every country, and God is so good.
That's
so
incredible.
So cool.
Yeah, it's an amazing journey. And also has again taught, that's another thing that's really refined me, is running a business with your husband. Yeah. So
I can imagine.
Oh my
God. And I'm like, he and I are both very strong-willed.
Okay.
And so like one of us is going to have to die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Right.
one of our ways isn't going to make it. And it got to the point where I was sewing like till 2 and 3 in the morning, and we were getting so many orders, and my husband, who was still working for corporate America at the time, he's like, you're going to burn out before you even get started. And he was gracious in going to like the local fabric store. And he's like, I'm going to find you seamstresses. So he asked random ladies working there, like, hey, will you sew for my wife? And so they became our first seamstresses.
Wow.
And yeah. And so I would go buy a bunch. I became like really good friends with the manager at Joann's, and she like gave me a special discount for the truckloads of fabric I started buying. And then she, like, some of the ladies there that, were our first seamstresses, I would load my car up with fabric, and then I would go deliver it to I had like 4 or 5 seamstresses. Some of them I found on Craigslist, and like, I was just driving around and delivering fabric and then collecting the stuff they made. And it was right around then, and I was like, I can't, this is a lot. This is a lot. And so we were like, maybe we should go, because we'd watched Shark Tank. We were like, maybe we should try that. Maybe we should go on Shark Tank. So we applied. I went to Chicago, and you had like all of 10 seconds to stand before producers and basically give a 10-second synopsis of your business. And all they really wanted to know is, do you have proven sales?
Yeah.
Like, are you legit?
Yeah,
or are you just kind of like a weird person? There were some weird people there, but I'm just gonna
just I'm gonna leave it at that.
It was quite it was like a colorful experience.
Yeah.
But we made it. And then what happened is, we had a friend of ours who goes to our church, who's an attorney, and he looked over the contract, and he said, don't do it. Don't go on that show. And we made the show.
Yeah.
We actually made it on the show. He's like, don't go on that show. And he said, number one, you don't have the infrastructure to support the sales. And my husband he really believed this as well. He was like, if we go on there, number one, and we didn't even know the regulations associated with like child sleepwear and like all the different labeling and all the things.
Yeah.
And until this, we've discovered all of it. It was like the process that kind of opened our eyes to what we were missing.
Yeah.
And then there was also, at that point, the producers would take 5% of your business, even if you didn't make a deal with the Sharks.
Oh, wow.
Oh, no.
And so he's like, don't do it. And I'm like, but God opened this door. And so why would we shut it? And honestly, my husband wanted to shut it. And he was like, no, we can't do it. We're not doing it. And I was like, this was one of the most painful surrendering and submitting moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Submission is not easy.
No.
But there are so many blessings that come on the other side of it. And as much as I didn't not want to agree with my husband in this moment, I'm like, all right, do it. And it was the best. Sometimes no is the best yes.
Yes.
And God used that entire experience to kind of help us work on our processes.
Yeah.
So like we found a manufacturer instead of all these different seamstresses all over the place. Because we just couldn't anymore, we found a fulfillment company to help handle that. And we, found testing facilities to do these crazy flame retardant testing. Like they light the thing on fire and find out how long it takes to burn. It's a whole thing.
Wow.
I had no idea. And then a few years later, or I don't even know how long later it was. I think maybe it was 1 or 2 years later. Then we went and auditioned again because we finally got our ducks in a row.
Yep.
And we made it the second time. And by the second time, they had removed the 5%.
There you go.
Sauce.
Good.
So on top of saying no and being able to retain that, like God is so good and faithful in all the things.
Yes.
And so anyway, and the reason they did that is because Mark Cuban came on. He's like, I'm not signing on to this if you don't remove that in retrograde, because he didn't like that the producers were doing that to the entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a pretty cool thing.
That is really cool. Yeah.
So anyway, we made it on the show and it was crazy. There's something called the Shark Tank effect and it just explodes in your face.
Yep.
And we were getting like 300 emails a day and we thought we'd have enough product to last us like 9 months and it lasted us 2 weeks. And then people were buying used ones on eBay for $120. It was crazy. It was so crazy.
My gosh.
And our fulfillment company didn't even know what to do with themselves at that point. And they misshipped like 1,200 orders. It was insane.
Yeah.
It was a hot mess.
Hot mess.
And we didn't know about it
Holy
until
cow.
we started getting emails coming in being like, where's my order? Where's my order? And they're like, it never was shipped ever. And so at that point, I mean, it was so hard. It was like, it was the most refining. Oh, I should back up and say we got 3 offers. We thought we needed to go in there for the strategic partnership to help us know how to grow this thing. But from the time you air to the time you actually end up deciding whether or not you're going to sign a deal with the shark is a good chunk of months between that you're experiencing this insane growth and you either like it self-destruct or figure it out.
Yeah.
And, they say you make diamonds under pressure. And I think that pressure taught us that all the things we thought we needed from the shark, we had to figure out on our own.
Yeah.
And so with all that hot mess of the fulfillment company misshipping all this stuff left, right, and backwards, this one lady from the fulfillment company reached out to me on Facebook and she's like, I know they messed up. I'm going to work around the clock to help you because I believe in you guys. She didn't work for us. She worked for this fulfillment. And her name is Sarah. And she did. And she ended up, because of that mess, leaving their company and coming over, and we ended up shipping, and she set it all up because she knew what she was doing.
Wow.
She still works for us today. And there's a whole nother like set of stories that like spin off of all these things, but like all the messes that we were like, we're going to drown. We're not going to make it through this. Those were the things God used, right? To like open the next door that we needed to go through in order to grow. And so anyway, and then there's like all these crazy, amazing stories. So we had lost a baby during, like, before going on Shark Tank the second time, and it was between the first and second time of making it on the show, and it was for me, it was very refining in my faith because I didn't know I could love someone I'd never met so much, and I never understood what it was to like lose a baby, or especially, I don't know. It was it just shocked me. I'd never experienced that kind of grief before. Yeah. And I didn't quite know what to do with it. But I remember before it happened, I started waking up at like 2 and 3 in the morning and feeling like the sense of urgency to get into God's word. And I started reading, there were certain verses that like with the holy highlighter, God like just elevated off the page, you know?
Yeah.
And one of them was, if you hope in the Lord, you will never be disappointed. And the other was, the joy of the Lord is your strength.
Yes.
And I felt like I was being prepared for a final exam of some sort. It was very strange. So then of course it happened that I remember sitting in the emergency room, and that verse, if you hope in the Lord, you will never be disappointed, kept rolling through my head. And I'm like, I'm disappointed, God. I'm disappointed here. You know,
Oh,
this
yes.
sucks.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so
Oh my gosh.
sorry.
But it hit me in that moment that was one of those apothecary drawers that I hadn't let Jesus into, is my family plans. And that I wanted God to follow my schedule and my plans for a family. And my hope wasn't in God. It was in that baby. It was in my plans. It was in my schedule. And it was in that moment that I was like, okay, God, take it. And I'm like, you know, if you want us to have another child, then let it be in your will, and let it draw us closer to each other and to you. And the crazy thing is, and I ended up having to go to emergency surgery, and like, had they not caught something within 24 hours, I would have died. Like, it was this whole crazy thing. And during that season, you know, that verse, the joy of the Lord is your strength. I got this crazy joy when I was in the midst of tears. I was crying, but there was this strange joy that was like almost protecting me during that season that I've never had it since or before.
Wow.
And it was only from the Lord. And so when after that happened, we ended up on Shark Tank, it came out that we had lost a child. And it came out because the women, I had gotten so behind on orders that I had to let them know, y'all, I can't get my order. I'm so like, the thought of looking at a baby product right now makes me want to vomit, you know? And they were, what surprised me is they totally flooded me with all these amazing like emails of their stories and how they had lost a child. And like, it opened the door to them being able to share and also heal by sharing their story, and me healing because they shared it with me.
Wow.
And that's why I think the power of story, let the redeemed of the Lord tell their story. And so it's just, and then the crazy thing is after Shark Tank, in those wee hours when I was answering 300 emails a day, this woman reached out. It was like 1 a.m. I was like, I don't want to read another one. Like, I'm just going to do this one last one. I click on it. It's like pages. I can't right now. But then I start reading it and I just start weeping. And it was a woman that said that she was pregnant with a child that doctors said that she should abort because it wouldn't survive to birth, and it would have all these severe heart conditions and everything. And she said, after seeing your story on Shark Tank, I decided to fight for my baby. And that little boy, Finn, is alive and well. And I like all of our moms who prayed for me and shared their stories with me. I posted it on our Facebook, and we all surrounded her in prayer.
Yes.
And that little boy is alive and well. And he ended up becoming the poster child for the American Heart Association, because he did have a heart surgery, but he was fine after. I mean, like, it's just such an incredible. So had we gone on Shark Tank the first time, none of that would have happened. None of it.
Oh, wow.
None
That's
of it.
amazing.
So it's just like, he never wastes anything, not a darn thing. And
isn't that the
and
truth?
it's just, so that's such a long story. Oh my gosh.
No, it's the most beautiful story. Oh my gosh.
Well, at some point you went ahead and wrote 2 books.
Jeez.
Oh, yeah. So it was right around like when my kids were old enough, my daughter was old enough to like want to do the whole elf tradition, that all the moms were doing. And I was like, okay, that sounds like fun. But it kind of, I guess I would say, I didn't love, I have to be careful because these things are like trademarked and it's someone else's product or whatever.
Sure.
But I guess I would say I just wanted my kids to focus on Jesus instead of the materialistic, and like, let's be good so that we can get presents because someone's watching us. Like,
right.
you know?
Yeah.
Yep.
And I started feeling really led, like, because she would get so excited every morning, to go find this. Sorry.
I love it.
That I would forget to but half the time. But I don't know who's outside.
Right.
But
I hear ya.
That's funny.
I still have an 8-year-old. So anyway, 7, just turned 8. But anyway, so just kind of God started laying on my heart, like, how do I do that? And I kind of felt led to create like a faith-based, like Christ-centered version.
Yeah.
And so that was a whole nother thing I'd never done before, and scary also. And I was like, well, I got all my seamstresses on Craigslist and through Joanne Fabrics. So I guess I could get an illustrator through that way.
Yes.
Did it work?
And so I posted on our Sleeping Baby page and also on Craigslist and said, this story is about a shepherd that is in search of the true meaning of Christmas, which is Jesus. And and all throughout the month, kids follow him on his journey to find him and leave he leaves little cards with messages that talk about Jesus and his faithfulness, and have verses on one side and like a little letter that explains the verse on the other. So it's like a devotional every day, And
that's sweet.
And so I posted that on Facebook, and then I had like a pretty big publisher reach out to me.
Wow.
And because I have a following on our Sleeping Baby page.
Yeah.
And then there was, again, this other decision, like, do I go, like, do I do that? But then we talked about like the creative control would be gone. And also like how much could I put of the salvation message? Cause like, I was not shying away from it. I'm like, let's do this thing. And so I ended up saying, we're good on that. And like saying, I'm going to self-publish, not even knowing what that even looked like or how to do any of it. I'm like, I'm supposed to not only write a book that rhymes, which I am not a poet, y'all, not.
Oh my gosh. That's funny.
A poet. And, and I honestly, every word of that thing, I was like, all right, Lord, I don't know how to do that. I don't even know what rhymes with this word. Like I literally word by word, I'm like, all right, Jesus, if you want this thing done, you're going to have to give me the one that rhyme with me. Word that rhymes with, I don't know, whatever, like random word. So anyway, you have no idea how many times I also spent on like, I would Google what rhymes with.
Oh, I'm sure. Thesaurus.com was your best friend.
Yeah. So, but it ended up turning out not by any effort on my own, but by God's grace, turning out to be this beautiful story of this little shepherd who wanted to be like the other little boys and girls. And, he was just a lonely shepherd, but God chose the least of these to reveal God's most beautiful gifts. The angels appeared to the shepherds first.
Yep.
And to me, that's such a beautiful story of how he chooses the most unlikely, and because I felt like that shepherd many times.
Yes.
And so anyway, we found our illustrator who's amazing, incredibly gifted. And he, I think we found him through Craigslist actually, but just insanely talented.
Wow.
And he also had an ability to design covers. And so like he just did the whole, I mean, he was amazing. So, and then we released it, and then we were like, oh, I guess that means we have to like market it and publish it. Like I'm Googling, how do you publish a book? I'm not kidding. This is the story of how we started our business, how we did the books. I'm like, Google and Jesus.
Yes. I love it.
Oh my goodness. So anyway, and it's not as hard as a lot of people think. I mean, you just have to register it on Bowker.com. But what we ended up
tip to the listeners.
Oh, what? What'd you say?
I said tip to our listeners. It's not that hard.
Yeah, tip to our listeners. The challenge, right, is the marketing it, right? And so we're having to market it from scratch. And And that was a learning curve too, how to get things in front of people and so people even know it exists. And also a season of refinement for me too. So anyway, and then that God totally blessed that and grew that. And to see and hear from moms, like I got to sit with my son as he asked Jesus into his heart. You know, I got to see my kids run to Jesus and their shepherd before they ran to their presents on Christmas morning. You know, and it's like only you, God, could have done that. You know, and then we ended up coming out with another book, the Easter version, where it's the shepherd's looking for his lost sheep, because we are all lost sheep that have gone astray, and you know,
yay.
And Jesus came as the slain lamb as well to die for us on Easter. And so, that tells, like, it also has cards that go with it. So every day leading up to that, it's the story of Easter and like explaining it and stuff like that. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So in your spare time, you just did that.
Yeah, in your spare time.
Oh my goodness.
That's incredible.
I don't know. I think about it and I'm like, how did that all, I don't know. Oh my God.
And on top of all of that, you act, which was my question originally, which is
so sorry. Oh my gosh.
No. This was fantastic that you took it and the Spirit led and ran. And so I love it. But like, where obviously you had the urge to act and the desire to act early because you were in the theater. How has that played a role in all of this journey? Like, how have you found the time to do it? How have you...
Well, and I think there's something we've already missed. She does merch for The Chosen.
Oh, yeah, we haven't even talked about that. But
oh, yeah. Well, that comes after the getting back into acting.
Okay, all right.
So should I...
Yeah.
Do that.
Do that first.
Okay, so, well, I guess... in all of that season, I guess, when I was still running a business or whatever, the church we go to, they do a full-scale Broadway musical once every 2 years.
Wow.
Like when we did Singing in the Rain, for example, they had rain on stage. I mean, they don't mess around. And the reason is because they're able to, it's like a way of planting a seed and getting people to come and feel comfortable in that setting. And like my own father-in-law and mother-in-law, it was such a cool story. They hadn't really been attending church. And then they came to see, I auditioned for Hello Dolly and ended up getting Dolly.
Let's go.
And they came to watch and they haven't stopped coming.
Yay.
And now like serve in our church, and like to see just how God uses creativity and storytelling and the arts to bring people to him in the most unlikely ways. That, I mean, the shepherd's treasure, the stories behind like God's redemption throughout our journey with sleeping baby. Like I'm built and to be drawn to stories that move hearts and minds to come to know the Lord and love him.
Yes.
And I think that's why I love acting. I think that's why I kept feeling the pull back, but to do it in a way that's different than the first time, you know?
Yeah.
So like 3 years ago, I kind of just felt led to go back into it. And I remember the very first thing I just like randomly happened upon, it was this international Christian film festival. And, you know, there was none of that back when I was like, what? There's a Christian, like, what does this even mean? How amazing is that? I felt like this was like a gift from God because like, I'm like, what? There is even something like this. And this is when I had first started. And I think doing the musicals at church kind of started fueling that fire toward going back to it. And I love Broadway musical style stuff because it's very big and overt, and like it's very physical because you can't see facial expressions as much on stage. But there's something about the nuance of film that I love, like where an eyebrow means a whole lot.
An eyebrow means everything. Yeah, totally.
It means everything. and I love that. I love that you can tell a story with just like a move of your eye.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a cool thing.
Yes.
And so, and also theater takes a lot more time away from families.
Fair.
And so film, I can practice and rehearse when I'm, I don't know, taking care of my kid. Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I show up ready and then I do the thing and stuff like that. So that's why I also like film, is because it gives me a little bit more freedom as far as being by my family and stuff like that. So
totally
went back to the very first thing I did was go to that Christian Film Festival in Orlando.
Yes.
And I had signed up so late because I just had found out about it like a week before.
Yeah.
And there was a casting room where you could do a monologue.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you were allowed to, but it was full and there was no way, like I was so late to doing this that I'm like, there's no way I can get in here. But when I got there, I was like, hey, I signed up late. Is there any way I can like just get up there and do a monologue? And it was a monologue I'd written based on losing a child. And so God, again, doesn't waste anything again.
Right.
And it's just God is so good.
Amen.
So good.
Amen.
But and that week before going to that festival, I had gone. Now you're gonna have to follow this one here. This is it.
She said, hold on.
But I know. But that week before going to this film festival, I had gone to the only showing of a film called Like Arrows. And that film was part of a curriculum that Family Life had put together for a parenting class. And there was a need for a parenting class in our church. And so we had gone to the pastor and we're like, can we bring this parenting class to y'all's church, to our church? And they were going to bring it before the elder board or whatever. This was before me going to the film festival. And so the Thursday before going to that festival, I went to the only showing of Like Arrows in theaters. So I show up at this casting, and because there was no room in the casting room, they're like, you can sit in the room and see if there's a spot that opens up. There were no actors allowed in there.
Right.
So I sit down, and then right next to me, this guy plops down, and he had like a little sticker on his name tag that indicated he had a film in the festival. And I was like, what's your film? And he's like Arrows. And I'm like, shut the front door. I just saw that. I just saw that. And, like, keep in mind, I took my headshots in my front yard. Okay. And printed them off at Kinko's. Yep. Okay. And they were really bad, really bad.
Yeah.
But I started talking and he's like, I'm going to wait until you go. And so he waited for me to do my monologue. And afterwards he said, if I ever have a role, I'll let you know. And that that you might be able to audition for or whatever. And I was like, really? And I remember calling my husband being like, this is a God thing. I don't know why, but it's a God thing. Mm-hmm. I just know it. I know it. And, sometimes you don't see the seed come to a plant until like a gazillion years later. Yes. Right.
Right.
But he was so sweet. Kevin is his name.
It's Kevin. People.
No. Yeah. And he even said to me, hey, and he was so gentle. And he's like, you might want to consider getting other headshots.
That's the nicest way someone can say that.
He was so nice. But then
you knew who she was talking about.
And then I started, like, after that, going down this path of, okay, I'm going to do this acting thing. For me, it felt like a very big confirmation. And I met the lead of that film, mm-hmm. Micah Hansen, there. He introduced me to her, and we've become best friends since. And what's so crazy is, so I'm going down this whole acting road again, kind of like, what do I do? Do I just like submit to everything all there or everywhere? I mean, what do I do?
How do you do it? Right.
I don't know. And at some point last year, like, I got to this place where I was like, I kept hearing that verse over and over in things, like, again, like that holy highlighter that kind of brings that, cease striving and know that I'm God. And I felt like in my striving and trying to like get roles and do these things, that there was an element of me like not trusting him. And so I actually stopped auditioning for stuff, like submitting myself. I would do stuff that my agent would bring. Oh, and Micah, who I met there at that film festival, was the one that ended up getting me with Jean, our agent.
Absolutely. So it's just, I was wondering, I was thinking, surely that's,
it's so crazy.
That's amazing.
So anyway, then as I ceased striving, I was like, okay, God, if you want me doing this, I need to know that this is not me, that this is you, that this is you going before me and doing the thing.
Yep.
And I get this email, like then things started happening. Like I remember I was praying at some point and listening to the song, The Blessing, and I get a ding on my computer. And it was this director's. He's like, hey, I think I have a role for you. Would you be like available this day? And I'm like, what? This is crazy.
I love
this
it.
Is so weird. And then all of a sudden I got this email from Bev and saying, the director of this film would like to see an audition from you.
Yes.
And sure enough, it was the director that I first met at that very first film festival,
Love
Kevin
that.
Peoples. And I auditioned, and by the grace of God, was able to do Lifemark with you. You were on
which
it
is
too.
so crazy that we've been in a project together, but
we don't
together.
I know. That is the problem with film, is you never like get to
We're
be
going to
there.
remedy that situation. Oh,
We need to.
We're going to remedy it. I believe it.
Wait,
I
you
do
were-
too. It's going to happen.
Were you not on the set at the same time?
No.
No.
I was only on set with like 3 people. So I missed Dawn. I missed everybody. Yeah.
Darn it. It's
I know.
going to happen.
It's going to happen. I believe it. But that's incredible. I mean, that's such a God thing.
It is. And you know what's funny? When I saw Kevin on set of Lifemark, and the other thing is, this whole season, the one thing I wanted to do is tell stories like the Kendrick brothers do, because I was like, they're such powerful stories that the whole point is to affect change for God's kingdom. Like, that's the whole reason why I want to do this.
Yep.
And so I had started praying from that 3 years prior, like, God, if it would be in your will for me to be a part of like a Kendrick brother film that has that kind of message, let it be. And through Kevin, like all those, that seed planted all those years before, like that happened. And when he saw me on set, he's like, I still have that headshot. I was like, throw it away.
Get rid of it. That's hilarious. Of course he still has it. That's so funny.
Man.
God is so good.
He is.
I love how he worked all of that together. Oh my gosh.
That's awesome.
That is awesome. Well, so as you may know, the pandemic happened and everyone started a podcast. And so we started a podcast, but we also started a ministry. This is part of a nonprofit that we've started that is dedicated to equipping Christians to use their talents and gifts to bring others into a relationship with King Jesus. That's the point. That's the goal.
Love that mission statement.
Thank you. And that's obviously, God downloaded that to us. And part of how that came up and how we got from there to the podcast was that we really want to showcase people who understand this, people who are engaging with their talents and gifts to build that brick in collaboration with God for his kingdom that he's building. That's the whole point of this. We're not building the kingdom. God's building the kingdom, but we can work with him to build our brick using the talents and gifts that he's given us to do the good works that he set out for us in advance. And so anyway, we just want to set good examples in all of our podcasts of people who get this idea, who are in tune with their talents and gifts, and who are using them, because we want to encourage others to do the same.
Right.
And yeah, I love it.
So we know that sometimes it may feel odd to say, well, I'm really talented in this area and this is my gift. But we always want to, encourage people to do that with, giving God the glory for the talent and the gift that he has given us.
It is a hard thing though.
It really
feels
can
weird.
be. It can be for some people have like kind of frozen up on it, but you're going to do great. But I just wanted to preface it by saying, we do for our listeners that we do this. We name these talents and these gifts because we know that the Creator gave them to us, and we give him all of the honor and the glory. And we want to, share them with the world. And so anyway, all that being said, tell us about your talents and your gifts.
Well, I will concur with what you said, because one of my favorite verses too says, who has given to God that God should repay him, for from him, to him, and through him are all things. To him be the glory forever and ever. Amen. And so you're right. It's all his.
Yes.
But I guess for me, I love all things creative, like, telling stories. I love languages and accents. I started learning languages like in 8th grade. I wanted to learn German because my dad's German, and I went to German camp and French camp, y'all.
Oh my gosh, you're such a nerd, and I love it so.
You would do this exactly.
I wish I went to French camp.
Yes,
are you kidding? I didn't even know that was a thing. Sorry,
it's
continue.
a thing, and it's in Minnesota, and they of all places. How random is that?
Can I still go? Is there an age?
I think there's adult camps.
Amazing.
I do. It's been a hot minute since I've looked, but yes,
I'll check it out.
It's a college, and they own this whole lake, and around the lake are all these language villages that look like little bits of those countries.
Oh my gosh.
And so you change your name to a German name. My German name was Annabella.
Ooh,
and
I love it.
Nice.
And they change your currency, and they take all your American everything out of your suitcase except for a Bible. You're allowed to have a Bible, and they only speak German to you. And so it is full immersion. I learned more in 1 month going there. You go there for a month and you get a year's worth of high school credit because it's that intense.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is the coolest thing I have ever heard. I'm so jealous. I'm literally reeling here. Okay, sorry. Continue.
Yes. And so I learned German, and I was like, this is awesome. And then I really wanted to learn Italian, but they didn't have Italian. And I was like, well, the closest next thing is French. So I started learning French, and went to Belgium, and went to a school there because you weren't allowed to, because I became a German counselor. Y'all, I'm not even joking.
I love it.
A German counselor at Waldsee, which is the German camp, and you couldn't be a counselor and also go to camp. And so I couldn't go to the French camp, so I had to go to another French camp, and the only one I could find was in Belgium, which is cool.
Which was very cool.
But anyway, so, and then went to college for international relations in German and French. And then afterwards, my best friend is from Ecuador. My best friend from high school, she had an exchange student from Ecuador, and I lived with her for a year in Ecuador and learned Spanish. And so just I don't know, I've always, this is going to show you how much of a dork I am. I hesitate here because, but we have family that are in Australia. They moved to Australia as missionaries years ago, and then they came to visit for a family reunion, and they stayed for a month. And by the end of the month, I was talking in an Australian accent with them. They must have thought I was the weirdest person.
I love it.
But and this was when I was really young, I want to say the end, maybe 6th grade. And I just loved, I always loved mimicking.
Yeah.
Listening and trying to do what they do. I always loved hearing and then being able to say the sounds the same way.
Yes.
It's fun. It's just fun for me.
I love
so
that.
It's a challenge or something. And so I think back all the way then, I even remember being cast in Scrooge, and I was the only one with an English accent in the whole cast.
I bet.
And
I love it.
It wasn't very good at the time, but
I'm sure it was perfection. Well, compared to everybody else's non-English accent. I have to tell you, you're going to appreciate this. I have my Siri set. So when I get directions and stuff, it's set to a female Australian accent.
Yes.
I can't listen to it any other way. And the way she says things is so funny. And I'm anyway, we're the same.
It's so
fine.
fancy.
It's so fancy. And then all the time when I say the word no, I always go, no. No. I can't.
Yes.
Anyway.
I don't know. It sounds so cool.
It does.
It's fun to me. It's almost like a different way of singing. You know how people express themselves in song? I don't know. It's just a different, you pick up on there's a song in different accents. Yeah. It's you have to hear the ups and the downs and the lilts and it's fun.
That's
to
amazing.
Me.
Did you ever take a dialect class or
No.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh.
I like listening
you just
to,
have a good ear for it.
stuff.
That's so cool.
That is cool.
Well, and I mentioned this way back at the beginning, but I also want to affirm in you that you definitely have the gift of exhortation and encouragement. It's like, it just exudes from you. We go to that film festival that everyone wants to hear about everybody's project, but everyone also wants to talk about their project. And just you are there to encourage others and to listen and
connect.
And it's just the way that you connect with people is so clearly a God-given talent. And so I just wanted to name that as we're talking about your talents and gifts.
Oh,
wanted to name that and affirm that in you.
It's making me very uncomfortable that you're doing this.
Yeah,
right
I'm
now,
sure.
But thank you.
But to God be the glory.
I need to receive that and be like, thank you, Lord.
Yes,
you're right.
Exactly. Because it has an impact on people. You have no idea what an impact it has on those around you. And so, anyway.
You're so sweet.
One thing that has been impactful, to use your word, for us is I was in a Bible study at church, and our pastor said, he was talking about something completely different. Of course, I apply it to our ministry. But he said, God has prepared good works in advance for us to do, and he's equipped us. And I went, with talents and gifts, So it's not about how cool my gifts are. It's about he's prepared me for these things he's going to give me.
Totally.
To do. I love that.
Yes. And one of the things that has surprised me is the whole immeasurably more thing, that I'll give you everything you need. It will often be like, I never wanted to be an author or a business owner. I didn't want to do those. It never even crossed my mind.
Yeah.
But being obedient to God did. And like the courage, the equipping, the talent sometimes come on the other side of the yes that we give him. Mm-hmm. And it's usually never in a way that we ever expect it to be.
Yeah.
Which is so cool. Like, I didn't know some of the talents I have until I said yes.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
That's great.
I love it.
So,
well,
I don't know.
Tell us a little bit about what kind of projects you have coming up.
Well, one of them you edited.
I love it.
And you are such a good editor. Seriously.
Stop.
Y'all, hire her.
Stop
okay. But for real. No, I do mean that, because that trailer, you did such a good job on that.
Well, thank you.
Interim pastor, or sorry, it's not interim pastor. It's imposter pastor. I've been saying interim pastor for so long.
Everything's labeled on my computer interim pastor. So it's very hard for me to do that. I do the same thing. I'm like interim imposter. Which
I love that name.
Yes.
I love imposter pastor.
It's so cute.
It's got like a little rhyming to it. So that's coming out.
Yep.
And I'm excited.
Very excited.
I'm going to get to see all my film family again. Over there. That's coming up at the end of this month. We get to see the premiere, so that'll be awesome. And Life Mark, we did that together.
Yes.
And so we'll see when that comes. I don't know when that's coming out.
Either. They started talking about it though, so that's good. That's always a good sign.
I know. I noticed. That's kind of cool. What else? There's I did The Glitch recently, which with Justin from Life Mark.
Okay. Yes.
So that boy can direct.
Yeah.
Let me tell you.
That's amazing.
So, and he has a really great understanding of camera too, which was awesome. But it was written by Kate, who, she's a young, like new up and coming filmmaker. And I love her parents too, Khaki Warren, and because they saw a gift in her and they were like, okay, we're going to bank on you. And so they've like really invested in her. Yes. I know y'all have that very similar story.
Yeah.
And, which is so cool. But she recently finished the film Spotlight.
Okay.
And that had like Karen Abercrombie was in it. Yes. There's just like a bunch of really great people that were part of that whole thing. And then they just finished filming with Justin, The Glitch. And so I play a small role, but of a mom, one of the girls' moms, but it's a sci-fi faith-based series. It's like, I think it's going to be really good. I may be biased, but I think it's going to be really good because it's nothing like it's what is needed. There's teens that want something like out there, and there's nothing out there that's good quality.
Yes.
I mean, there's limited things, right?
Yeah.
That, all their other options are like Gossip Girl and Game of Thrones or something. Like, this is what teenagers are watching. That's like,
no, thank you.
But I know. And so they have really come together, and they've put some amazing, I just saw some of the stuff, and it's beautiful footage. Well done. He's an awesome director, and she's a talented writer. It's a really different concept, which I'm excited about.
That is really exciting. That's
so cool.
And
I got to meet Aaron Fullen was my husband. He's a comedian, and him and his wife were there, and we got to hang out for a while. So they were so fun and just good people. I think that's the best part about film is like meeting is the people, right?
Absolutely.
So that, and then Broken Chords is another thing that's coming out. And that is a really awesome, it's a grittier story of redemption. It's not like overtly faith-based, but there is redemptive messages in it, which I love, where the character starts one way and ends a totally different way, which is just such a beautiful story to me. And it involves music, which is fun. So
I love it.
Yes. And I get to play. That's why I have brown hair, is because I dyed it to be an Israeli woman.
Okay.
And through her brokenness, she helps connect the broken pieces of the two other characters. It's only a 3-person. It's an estranged father and son. And that they, he was a musician and really fell into drugs and alcohol and left his family, his son. But he still, really the main reason why he went to the alcohol and drugs is because he feels this guilt and shame for the life he led and the son he left behind. And then one day the son, as an adult, knocks on the door. Wow. And so, and I won't tell anymore. But,
oh my gosh, that's so exciting. What a big year for you. That's so many things. Fun. That's so many projects.
I'm super thankful.
That's amazing. And especially, after you took a hiatus.
I
love that word. From acting, for you just obviously God has blessed your faithfulness, and to him be the glory, because he's just such a good God.
Yeah.
And here's what's so cool is I've learned, I don't think that sometimes it's about the role or the movie. I think it's about like, because of this, I'm telling the story, his story.
Yeah.
Through you. Right. Yeah. Or I'm meeting that person on the plane to the set that I'm going to. There was this, amazing story, meeting this kid that didn't have faith. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, that was why I was called to that set. It wasn't even about the film or the role. It had nothing to do with it. So I think sometimes it's just a vehicle that God is using to then tell his story more.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, you're definitely a light.
I love it.
Yeah.
And you're also doing merch for The Chosen, which is one of our favorite TV shows. Tell us how that kind of came about. It's a really cool story, I think. I'm pretty sure. I've heard the story.
Well, okay. So I had seen, before The Chosen even came out, I went to the Christian Worldview Film Festival that the Kendrick brothers put on. And at that festival, Dallas gets up on stage and tells this amazing story of brokenness, of how he came to the end of himself, and some random dude messages him on Facebook and goes, because he had a flop in the theaters. Right. He thought he had made it in Hollywood. Like,
we were there.
We were there. Yes.
Oh, you were there?
Yeah.
In that same session, but keep going.
Yes.
No way. So anyway, but he kind of talks about how he had felt like he was going to make it in Hollywood. Like he was in big box theaters. And then all of a sudden, the numbers come in and it's total flop. And he was just devastated. And the investors didn't want to invest in him anymore. And he was just he had come to this place of what was that all about? Yeah. And some random guy messages him on Facebook, and I hope I'm not butchering this, but as I recall this message, but messaged him, and he's like, you're only supposed to bring the loaves and fish and let God do the rest.
Yes.
Bring your gifts and talents and let God do all the other things.
Yep.
And his wife also felt that, God was speaking to her. God does impossible math.
He does.
Something's going to happen there,
Yeah.
And that's when he just kind of started going and obeying what God had called him to do, and doing videos for his church. And one of the videos happened to be The Shepherd, which ended up going viral. And then people wanted to make a show about the life of Jesus, which is amazing. And I had heard that story, but I think I was moved just because I'm moved by those stories of brokenness, because I've had some
right
myself.
Yeah.
And I see God's strength being made perfect in weakness. And that's really the best place we can be, is where we don't have anything in our own strength to give, because then God shows up.
Right.
So, anyway, it really moved me, and it just sat with me a lot after that. And we had only seen like a very rough cut of the very first episode. Do you remember?
I remember.
And it wasn't even color graded. Like you couldn't see a lot of it because it was so dark.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Do you remember?
I remember.
Totally.
I remember it. Yeah.
Yeah. But after that, it just like kind of like stuck with me for some reason. And I remember one morning I woke up and I don't know, God brought to my mind The Chosen was like, they need merch, which is so weird. Such a weird thing to come to my mind.
Right.
Like it totally came out of the blue. Right. But one of the things I like to do is design and create. That's another like gift that only by the grace of God he's given me. And I was like, maybe we could, because we started doing embroidery and screen printing because moms wanted their babies' names on their zippity zips.
Yep.
And so we'd gotten embroidery. And so my husband, who's an amazing business owner, he like just it truly has taken our business to a whole different level.
Yeah.
But he has kind of run the Effortless Branding is what it's called side of our business.
Yeah.
And so I just started making like, I took the logo and like put it on a shirt with a graphic design stuff and was like, hey, would this be good? Like you could maybe raise money for your show. Cause going with the fish thing,
right.
Which is true. Like you either give a man a fish and he eats for the day, teach a man to fish and he eats for a lifetime. And, you could donate to The Chosen, or we could like give him merch so he could raise money for The Chosen.
Right.
And I don't know why I felt led to like reach out to him on Facebook and be like, hey, I whipped this thing up and you can I'm sure you got like a brother or something or like an uncle that could do these, but I figure like it might be good to bring in different revenue for you.
Yeah.
And I did not think that he would like respond or even acknowledge that at all, but he did. And he's like, hey, yeah, we'll meet with you. I'm like, what?
Wait. That's incredible.
So sure enough, we did. We actually ended up meeting with Daryl. They were filming the first season, and Brett, my husband, and I went there. And so my husband has an ability, like he has a great relationship with these guys. And really at that first meeting, I could tell this was all my husband, like, cause it's like a chosen fraternity over there. So in the best way possible. Okay.
Yeah, I hear you.
And so like really Brett is the best fit. Like his personality lines up with it. So I'm like, okay. And that's his thing, is the effortless branding side of things anyway. And so he really, I don't deserve credit for this one other than to like make the introduction, and then Brett has kind of taken it from there. So that's how that all happens. And so it's been really cool to see them be able to fund part of The Chosen with that. Yeah. Like that's awesome. It makes me excited.
One, and you just offering your talent to him in that, to them in that way. Like
that's amazing.
It's incredible. And obviously it's an incredible show, and you've done such a great job.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all have done I'll say y'all.
Love the fish.
Y'all.
Husband included, y'all have done such a great job. And that's just so exciting.
Thank you. It's been a fun journey.
Well, okay. So how can people connect with you, follow you, all of your goings on?
Yes. Okay. So Instagram, Stephanie Parker, actress.
Yes.
I always I don't know what to do for my.
No, that's perfect.
And also that's the same on Facebook too.
Okay,
you
perfect.
can find me there. So
I love it. Well, be sure to, everybody who's listening, be sure to check it out because she's got lots going on this year.
Go follow her.
Yes. Stephanie, we love you, and we're so grateful for your time and just the light that you've been to us today. I'm confident. I know how much God is going to use this use your story to bless our listeners. And so thank you for blessing us today. And we love you, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. And thank you because you've been a blessing to me.
Thank you. And we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. For more information on Project Brickworks, visit us online at projectbrickworks.org. Subscribe to our newsletter or text BRICK to 55498 to get the latest news and updates. We love you all. Be blessed. We'll see you next time.